I'm going to introduce some of these panelists who, in their own right, from legal to community to entertainment, and from an activism standpoint, all have a point of view in terms of what solutions may be. And we want to get into that. And so, and again, do something different. Let's actually come back and say what we did, so that the solutions we end up working. So meet this Black Women's Expo. Women are the majority number of consumer spenders. Women are the majority number of registered voters. So a combination of voters and money means when women say, here's where we get ready to go, here's where we're going to go. The reason for growth and development, and the reason Gator Bradley and the sister here will introduce this book. Part of our panel is based on the life and work of how we went from GD to growth and development. It's an instrument that empowers the reader of this book to take personal responsibility to aid and assist in stopping the killing of African Americans by other African Americans, to stop the raping and disrespect of women and children, and to stop the gross disrespect and violence against seniors. It likewise empowers the reader that by changing one's thinking, you ultimately change the choices you make about the way you choose to live, and thereby empower yourself to be an asset to the community and world around you. It has worked for Gator, and some of us have witnessed it ourselves. Gator and his family over the past 20 years. If we stand together, put our resources together, and take action to change for the better, we can all be called for united in peace. That's why we're here. So for your presence here today, give yourselves a hand. So I'll just start giving everybody an opportunity to give their point of view about where we are in terms of solutions to the violence. And so I've already stated my opinion. If we stop the economic violence we commit against one another, we have less violence in our community. And that takes a lot of work. Just can't tweet and text that, you gotta work. To my right, further right over here is a legendary attorney, Sam Adams. In the tradition of how we came up with a lot of our entertainers in the community, being out here with us, the Grammy Award-winning writer and performer, Brother Rhymefest from WVOA. And of course, our host and life's work to examine the day in solutions to violence, Wallace Gator Bradley. And the sister that did a powerful thing by taking this work and documenting it for the world to see how it works. Let me get this right. Dr. SaFiya Hoskins, co-author of the book, Word of Excellence. And from the state of our minds, before I say that, you're medical doctor or mind doctor? Clinical psychology, we got to do with the psychology of our minds. Because I remember before we got to text and tweet and got all these degrees, common sense ruled the day, and we did a whole lot better. So sometimes education scares me, I'm going to get that smart. But anyway, one of the doctors in our community who's going to help us deal with, from his vantage point, he's very active in the community, a lot of us know him already, Dr. Benton Cook III, PhD. And last but not least, sister over here, who also represents a powerful voice for change in this community because she's a publicist for Jay-Z. In his own right, he proved that you can go from the streets to the suites and beyond when you change your mind. And so we're glad to have, I'm going to get this right too, I'm going to get all the names. I want to get Sister Chaka Pilgram, publicist for multi recording artist children. All right, well, let's get to this. I don't know if the Alderman is still coming or not, but we need to move on that, so we keep on going. But speaking of that too, my last editorial. It would be nice on the April 15th birthday of Harold Washington that our elected officials would say, you know what, we ain't passing no more budget laws that don't fit how Harold Washington said about 30 years ago. We've been suffering ever since because we stopped doing what Harold did. 30% of contracts 30 years ago were less than 10. And we happy about it. But that's economic violence too. Attorney Adams, in your judgment, because I want you to speak from your own piece, what would you say in the spirit of how we go from negative to positive, your solution that we can all talk about to this urban violence?
Well, having looked at it from a context in which I come from the criminal defense aspect and looking at the neighborhoods that I have to service, the people that I have to service, looking at what the state's attorney's office has to service. I think one of the major problems that I have seen, and one of the growing issues that is not addressed is philosophy. We have a philosophy, at least in government that I see, that African Americans, Latinos are expendable. That when you walk down the street or you're in these predominantly black neighborhoods, predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods, that the kids there are fungible, that they're automatically seen as criminals. And I think from the legal standpoint, we have to change that philosophy. We have to have a state's attorney's office. We have to have an attorney general's office. We have to have an office from the mayor on down that has accountability not only for the citizens and the law, but also for those who are in law enforcement, which we don't see in this community. Chicago has become, and I hate to say this because this is my city, this is my town, this is a place where I grew up, but Chicago has become a national laughingstock when it comes to the legal system. We have 12 young men that grew up in the prison system that turned out to be on death row and exonerated. We have Commander Burge, who was out in Area 2 for 10 to 15 years, extolling his version of justice, which is to put typewriter bags over kids' heads so that they could get confessions, which is to put a black box that has electrical charges on young individuals' testicles and shock out confession. And to this day, not a single person has ever been indicted, not a single person has ever gone to jail because of that. Why? Because African American men, Latino men, and poor whites are expendable. And that's a philosophy that has to change from the up to the down, because it's the accountability that's important. And once we start having that change, it will filter down, and people will start to respect themselves. People will start to see themselves as more than just expendable. And that's where I think we have to start in a community, is making the upper echelons of the community accountable for what they do so that the young people can see and move forward.
Okay. Now, Ryan, let's move on to you. I want to go all the way across. We come up in a history, some of us in this room, where we watched the entertainers, radio personalities in our community who were actively and systematically engaged in using those kind of messages to lift the people up. So you come up in a tradition of, oh, actually, before I do that, our chairman of the budget committee, probably one of the most powerful committees in city government. No money comes through the city without coming through her. Had a chance to work a lot of years with her late husband. It's good to see her in this position of power on this women. Black Expo, please welcome Chairman of our City Council Budget Committee for 34th Ward, Carrie Austin. So now, Rhymefest, I was mentioning, you come up now with a tradition of when the Shine-Lights, the Impressions, the Staple Singers, Motown, all of them and our DJs translated themselves in the music into how those became the empowerment messages of our people. So when we said we was going to move on up, we moved on up. And so how do you see yourself now in terms of how do we use your position in dealing with this issue of solutions to urban violence?
Well, in terms of using art as a solution to urban violence, we have to stop using artists to help our organizations get notoriety and get grants instead of helping children, right? So what we have is a lot of organizations, and I speak to a lot of artists, so I'll kind of tell you what we do at the organization that my wife Kanye and I run called Donda's House. And then what we do is I stay with those young people. I teach a class in literature, how to write music. What is this, how many bars are 16 bars? What is a bridge? What is a chorus? Those young people are with me every week. We have a professional football player that is there every week at Donda's House doing health and wellness. We have a professional musician that is helping young people record. So now they're spending sustainable time with people that they admire and see in the field. What I saw, what led us to do this type of program is a lot of programs would bring a Kanye or a Lupe or a Common in to speak. They would get a lot of notoriety, they would go apply for some grants, and then those young people wouldn't see those artists until the next time a big artist came to the program. Artists were being pimped by poverty managers in the hood. You know what I'm saying? The same way that aldermen are being pimped by the mayor. The same way that the people are being pimped by the aldermen. So it's kind of a pimp game, And it just depends on which tier you in, you know what I mean? And so what we have to do, to me, as a solution in our community, is stop pimping each other and start really loving each other. We have to do work before there's money involved. The classes that we teach, the things that we do at Donna's house, I don't get paid for it. The majority of everybody that works at Donna's house is a volunteer that gives us 2 hours a week of their time for free. I believe in the black community, what you speak of is a day where there was love, and what we have now is a day of, man, you gotta eat. You can't blame us for trying to eat this kind of backwards venture capitalism that we're trying to practice, that white people have been practicing on us. And that doesn't work. So what we have to do is begin loving again and give before we give.
And now as we move to law, entertainment, government, before the Alderman came in, I mentioned the fact that we used to use government, we had an insult level in government, and so how do we go from, and I mentioned this phrase, economic violence, that is economically violent, to watch, you go to Chinatown, ain't no law that says majority Chinese gotta work, it just is. Can't put no barbecue house in Chinatown, it just is. So now we come to the black community, and Chinese ain't got not one on, no state rep, no governor. So how do they go from making sure all of government resources come from the majority community, and we have 18, 19 black aldermen, and we gotta explain black minority. How do we use government and the power? We fought a long time to have power in government. And Alderman Austin, how do you vision the power of government in terms of dealing with the economics of being able to stop the violence in our urban community?
First, good afternoon. And first, giving all praises and honor to God. There's no one respond, because our power, in my opinion, is always about our vote. And our vote also, as we vote collectively together in our city council. As to say that it's fragmented, we are one of the most fragmented groups in the council. It's always about I, it's never about we. And when we get back to the we, then we will also enact our power again. Just as any other race do, just as you just spoke about the Chinese, that's how they do that, because they do one thing, stick together. For us to stop the violence in our community, or economic violence, we got to start buying in our community as well. So when we buy in our community, we also uplift our community. The other thing is I'm not pimped at all. I don't believe in that, and the statement that you say, I don't believe in that either. I mean, because I can't start off a conversation and say, first giving all praises and honor to God, and don't love somebody. So I do that. Am I paid for everything that I do? No. I do more than my share because I love my people. I love what God has blessed me to be charged of. So I'm not pimp, and I'm not a pimp. But for all of us that are a part of this great city, we don't put in our part. We don't put in our part in our communities. We turn our heads. We don't put in our part in our votes, as we just did. This was the highest vote, the lowest voting turnout that we've ever had. We got to start getting out and doing the things that we should have been doing all the time. Two, our neighborhoods are the beat and heartbeat of us as a people. But we've kind of forgotten that. We haven't put forth that effort in a while, at least not that I have seen. But if we can come together, and I know that we can, because we got to all fight for the same cause. The violence that's going on in our community is because our young people don't believe that we give a darn. They don't believe, and I won't say the other word because the baby's in there. Because when something happens, we're silent. We go by a code of silence. I have no idea what that means. That just means shut up and don't talk about it? No, we got to start talking about it. We have to be hard down mad about the things that go on in our community, especially the violence. Whose is it? Somebody else's child. No, it isn't. It's ours. It's not somebody else coming into our community, it's us in our own community. How did we start a war on ourselves? And that's what we have, a war on ourselves, a war on our young people. And yes, we do have to help our young people. But I believe the first person that you got to help is the mother and the father. Because every kid that picks up a gun don't come from a dysfunctional family. So if you are working with those families, that's what helps stop it as well. And why is our children so violent these days? Because they know that we're not going to do anything about it. We should change that thought. And the only way to do that is to change the mindset of our children. And since it's a few men in here, I'll say what I believe that the Lord has given to me. Yeah, I use the Lord a lot, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. He told me to teach every man that I know, or say to every man that I know, it takes a man to teach a man how to be a man. And if all of you all that are sitting here are men, you've grown up to be men, be it a broken home or be in a great home, you need to teach somebody else how to be a great man. Take a boy and teach him how to be a great man. Then they'll know how to teach us that are women, like great women. So if we don't start in those things, and I know I've said all now, I've been all over the place, but if we start in some of those areas of just changing our community, it won't be any violence. But if we start back to investing in our community, we'll have an even better community.
Thank you. Now, thank you, Dr. Hoskins, I mentioned earlier, one of the most profound things I read in this book that you co-authored was the difference in how our community can look at the life of the Larry Hoover and Jeff Ford and now through Gator, who are actually doing what they told them to do. So you're no longer a friend of our community if you're still doing those illegal things. So sure, got to do the right thing. But one of the most harmful things I read that some people don't know is, how does the Hamburg gang in Bridgeport get to be so righteous and how they transform themselves, but Gator everything but a child of God for trying to do what those who once represented negative elements have done? So you documented this, so how important was that to you in terms of how this could help be a blueprint to stopping the violence?
I believe that the same way that the narrative by Frederick Douglass continues to inform and guide us, the same way that Maya Angelou shared her intimate experiences, and we learn and we grow and develop, that Mr. Bradley's book does, and will continue to inform and guide us as it regards going from a negative to a positive. There's something else that I'd like to add, having listened to the panelists who have spoken thus far, is that there's this theme of love and loving ourselves and loving the community. And I grew up, my mother, who's sitting out there, taught me and shared books that there are two emotions that we act from, and those emotions are love and fear. And it's the fear that brings about the racism, it's the fear that brings about the killing, the oppression against one another. And if we allow love to guide our decisions, whether it's with regard to education, politics, social justice, everything, just even our health and spiritual healing, then we begin to, and if I may borrow from Mrs. Bradley, something that she always talks about, affecting change in our thinking, which is the root cause of a lot of the negative effects that come because it's not from a place of love.
Thank you. It's all over the place, so
That's all right.
we're going to connect
Did
the
you do
dots.
something? Did you learn? What was for Fat Albert? Hey, you guys learned something before we through.
But you missed something.
I'd like to share something else as well on that subject. There's a quote from Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and she said, "I worked with Gator in Chicago years ago. We brought gangbangers to the Democratic National Convention to set up a platform. But here's the part. When young people learn to trust you and love you because you show love, you can lead them and you can guide them. Gator is connected to urban youth and working with them every day in our community and on our streets to make a positive difference." And so with that being said, again, when we get out there in our communities and touch people as opposed to looking the other way, when we have the opportunity to educate, like Rhymefest, said, when we have the opportunity to affect political change. Mrs. Austin says this, I can go on. Anyway, I wanted to share.
Thank you. We're going to try to connect the dots. Thank you. Dealing with our state of mind, Doctor, as I mentioned earlier, when I grew up, my father took me to 79th and Halls, a place called Bread Basket, Capitol Theater. And I joined the youth movement of Bread Basket then and never stopped. But the whole point was, I'm coming back there, when we learned as young people, the elders in the community, I should never forget them, they should really explain the numbers. They didn't ask. They went out, took their McDonald's money, insurance money, they raised the money and made us organize in the community. Because they wanted to see that happen. So, and then from that state of mind, then Reverend Willie Barrow taught us and others, what happened to our state of mind when we used to believe, no matter how low you were in our community, we don't work, nobody worked. And people knew that. So in terms of our state of mind, we got all these agendas and solutions that people don't seem to follow in your doctor kind of way. What's dealing with our state of mind set in our community in terms of dealing with the urban environment?
I first of all want to thank God for this opportunity on this day to come and share with the people. Come and share with my fellow speakers or orators up here, and with you, the people out there in the audience. I, as you, Mark, grew up in the city of Chicago, and I was there in those Bread Basket days also. I remember making those cold efforts to be there on push on in Saturday Bread Basket. Betty was so instrumental in making sure that we did the right thing. And Betty was everybody's mama, as she is today.
Indeed.
But the key thing is that after I grew up, I left Chicago for about 25 years, went on with my profession with NBC and produced and direct television programs all over the country, all over the world. So I lived in different cities and I've seen different experiences and saw different folk doing things different kind of ways. But the unique thing about Chicago is that Chicago does things in ways that I've never seen anyplace else in the history of our people. And that is the self-degradation that we have of ourselves here. And it all starts, I believe, in the home. The Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. You have to think, and you have to be taught how to think properly. And one of the things that our children are not being taught is how to do things the right way. Over the last couple of weeks, you all have seen several articles come out in the Chicago Sun-Times about what I've done in different communities and the things that I've been a part of. And nothing disparaging. It didn't say anything that I did wrong. It didn't say that I stole money or under investigation, anything like that. My association was because of who I'm married to. And because I'm the husband of the clerk for the Circuit Court of Cook County, they tried to imply that I got this position because of that. No, I have been doing this for the last 10 years since I've been back in Chicago. And as a clinical psychologist, the purpose of my training is to figure out why people do what they do. One of the things I found out in doing this, and we've done empirical data studies, that means we've taken our kids and we've studied their habits from the time in which they were 2 years old until the time that they were 8. Our kids, from a major point of view, are being mentally and emotionally crucified. And it happens from us. We as parents and we as grandparents. Found out in my studies, and I'm from the West Side. I was born and bred over there, Mark. And I work over there now, and I work for free. I don't take a dime for what I do. I've given up a multi-six-figure income to do the studies that I do over on the West Side. I found out that our kids, over 60% of them are suffering from PTSD. Y'all heard of that? That's post-traumatic stress disorder. Normally you find that in combat veterans, people who have been in Afghanistan and Iraq and all kind of different wars. But our kids are suffering that from domestic and street violence. The parents are smacking their kids upside the head saying, shut up, damn it. Or calling them little bees, or bastards, or whores, and things like that. That's why they're echoing those same things in the streets. They don't feel good about themselves because the parents are not teaching them how to feel about themselves. Our kids are suffering that at a higher degree than the veterans that come back from the war. And PTSD it can mess you up for life. So no, they don't feel good about people out there in the streets because they see them as being not a part of themselves. It goes deeper than self-hate and loathing against ourselves. It goes against us as a people. Other societies, other groups have gone through this self-violence. You know, the Jews did it when they came over here. The Irish, they killed and murdered themselves, but yet they got out of it. The Italians, they made the mafia movement. Well, they got out of it the next generation. Our generation seems to be a multiple of self-degradation. And this generation is suffering because of the G generation and what they call the baby boomers. We have gone against our children. We are killing our babies. So until we start taking care of home, ain't no grants, ain't no economic development. We don't know what to do with the money if we get it in there. We don't know how to run a business because we don't feel good about, you got to feel good about you. You got to feel good about your home environment. You have to feel as if you have self-worth and self-value before you can do anything. And at that point, then we can start making progress. Every other group in the history of the world have done it. We're the only ones who haven't, as of yet.
Thank you. I'm going to mention this too. We mentioned some of the people in terms of this intergenerational piece, but again, when I came up in Breadbasket and Push and all that and Expo, it was people like Betty Maddox who was there who helped us as young people know, the power that we had as young people. They just taught us. Wasn't no D degree, nothing, just here's the power you got to have, and we went and done it. So we went out and showed people how to put money in businesses. We marched for Start the Black Banks. We did it with the young power. But Betty Maddox is here with us. Get Betty a hand, would you? And I saw Carl West of the Next Generation Leadership Council. We're trying to share with them because the same model that Betty them trained us and we moved and built black business and that consciousness, same form. We just need to do it again. Carl West, Next Leadership Council. Give a hand. Move on. Okay. Young brother just came in, one of our recording artists. We're going to hear from him. But give a hand, recording artist GLC. Let me keep it moving. Now down here, Sister Chaka Pilgram, you represent Jay-Z. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our artists, it was their messages. The impression showed us to keep pushing. Mavis Staples them told us, respect yourself. We had music with the message. How do you see, as Gator said, he's lobbied radio stations forever to say, play Murder to Excellence. Let our young people hear about how I went from negative to positive, and they don't want to play it. How do you see, and if he thinks that's a role that message can deal with getting on the mindset of our youth, what role do you probably see in terms of taking that message? That'd be a powerful thing if Jay-Z said, well, y'all ain't playing my song, y'all trying to kill us. and see what they say. But how do you feel about the power where you are with artists like Jay-Z and how his message can be a new generation of lifting up the consciousness of our young people?
Obviously, music is a portal of information for our youth today, and I think that the people that are at the helm of that tend to gravitate to messages that are more negative, and I just try to empower myself, as long with Jay-Z, to make sure that we have the largest platform possible, not just for his music, but through his music and his business acumen, to try to pass that on to the youth.